So today we're trying to get y'all out of these unhealthy relationships. We're really sick of talking about y'all in these relationships.
My Lord.
This is what y'all want to talk about.
Yep, we're gonna give it to you.
I should put that in a video.
Welcome back. This is another episode of the EnRicHer experience. My name is Miss Sinclair. I am your millennial lifestyle transformational coach. So if you are a young woman going through a breakup, you are transitioning your careers, or you want to get your health back on track, I can help you with that.
And I am Deliqua Isom, anti-anxiety expert, author, and speaker. So I help women and men reclaim their lives from anxiety and traumatic experiences so that they can thrive and create work-life balance in their professional and personal careers.
I'm telling you, I ain't gonna lie, my last job, I went through a lot of bad anxiety.
Oh, everybody does, and I don't think people really understand how anxiety really works and how they have the power to change it.
Well, since we're on the topic of anxiety, let's talk about anxiety within a relationship.
Yes, I think that's gonna be really, really good.
Yeah, because people are attached to certain relationships that causes them mental dysfunction. And I was there, but for the people who stay, I don't get it.
Right, I don't get it either. I think a lot of it has to do with personal healing, personal development, and growth. When a person really doesn't know who they are, they tend to stay in relationships or in attachments that no longer serve them or just isn't being productive to who they are and who they desire to be. So I think that's a big, big part of it. People understanding that they really need to heal from their own personal trauma, you know, because people trauma bond and then they get into these codependencies in relationships, make the decisions based upon them being anxious and unaware. So I think that's what keeps people in the cycle of staying. That's part of what keeps people in the cycle of staying.
Yeah, and to unpack this trauma bonding thing, I want people to understand. So, you know, you can really apply this to your life and make changes if you're in a relationship you just don't like. And it's okay if you don't like your relationship. So, you know, maybe you have a lack of something in your life or from your childhood that you've always wanted or always needed to make you feel full, like fulfilled. For example, your daddy wasn't around, right? And so you meet a man who's hyper masculine, you know, he checks off all the boxes. He's a great leader, he's a great provider, but he makes you unhappy. But you stay because you're like, wow, I was missing this all my life. Mm-hmm. And the bond comes in to whereas maybe the man was missing something in his life. Maybe his mom was too strict.
Rejection.
And so, so now he wants a more submissive and super nurturing woman. And so you haven't healed from that to be fulfilled within yourself, but now you're attached in this relationship.
Mm-hmm. So my personal experience with this was when in my early 20s, I hadn't healed from any of my trauma. But what I did was I took my trauma and wanted to make this person, how can I help them? How can I help them be great? How can I help them be better? So I took the focus off of me and put the focus on him, knowing good and well that I needed to work on my underlying issues, you know, sexual molestation, domestic violence. At that time, I had not been raped because this person later came back and raped me, but getting into that was because of my own trauma, my own emotional wounds. And we really bonded because he had daddy issues. He had some issues within himself that he hadn't dealt with, low self-esteem and different things. So I saw that, but I also saw the good side of him, and I wanted to enhance the good side of him. And I gave so much of myself to him that I kind of lost myself deeper in my trauma. So it wasn't until I recognized that, hey, I needed to heal so that I can make better choices, and so that this man no longer showed up in my life with a different face. Mm-hmm. Same personalities, but with a different face and a different name. So that was one of the things that I literally shift my life. You know, I'm big on healing from trauma because I believe that shifts your life, not just in your relationships, but your bank account, your spirituality, how you move and grow and develop in your business. So trauma bonding is something that I think a lot of people do, and they just aren't aware of it. Self-awareness.
Oh my gosh. Right? I mean, listen, if you don't feel good, then there is an issue. There is an opportunity to make change. There is an opportunity to choose something different. And I am totally supportive of women, especially because this is my personal experience as a woman. We need to really learn how to prioritize ourselves in any type of relationship. Until we start doing that, we're going to start accepting things that people feel that we are good enough for, right? We need to place the high value on ourselves, and we're not going to do that until we start setting boundaries, until we start identifying the things that we want, taking our time to learn ourselves. What are our triggers? What are things we need to heal from? What things really fulfill us? Because you'll be surprised. What you're looking for, you can find within yourself. You can have a peaceful, sensual, sexy evening at home by yourself without the need of a man or another partner. And until we really get to that, it's always going to be an issue with these relationships. The abuse, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, right? I was in an emotionally abusive relationship to the point where I was diagnosed with clinical depression. I have a very upbeat personality.
Right.
I never thought in my life I would ever have depression. When I found out, I thought I was gonna die. Like, I didn't understand the depths of it, but I just knew that, wow, I am totally stripping myself of the joy in life. And thank God that God spoke to me and I made the decision.
Yes.
But how many women they know, they have the triggers, they have the warnings, and they're not making the decision?
But they're not making a decision, and I see this in the work that we do. They're not making a decision because they can't hold an emotional space for themselves, right? So when you can't hold an emotional space for yourself and connect with you, you can't sit still and do anything for yourself because you are afraid of the thoughts and different things that are going to come up. When you've been told certain things in your childhood, you know, you're undeserving, or you're seeking attention, or you're dumb, you're stupid, and that narrative is replaying, and then you meet someone who's saying the opposite of that in the beginning, saying all the opposite of that is uplifting you, but then y'all have a simple disagreement on color. Let's just use that as something very simple. You have a disagreement about color. That disagreement turns into, now you're stupid, you're dumb, you're this, you're that. Now you're hearing everything that you've heard from your childhood. The narrative just keeps replaying, but because you haven't learned how to switch and change that narrative, you stay in that unhealthy relationship because you have yet to understand how to hold an emotional space for yourself. Be emotionally present and available to understand what you need. You will not understand what you need until you start asking yourself some really, really deep, dark questions. Most of the time, most people aren't going to ask themselves deep, dark questions. It's going to ask surface level questions, and that's not helping you. You got to be able to go below the surface to get to the cause of the problem that's affecting you, and you're showing up in your relationships, you're showing up in the relationship with yourself a certain way, and you don't like it. You have to have the willpower, the perseverance, the determination to see yourself differently. And that starts by sitting still with self.
No, it's key, because we don't typically sit still with ourselves until we're in the hospital, right?
Girl.
Until we have our emotional breakdown, until we feel like we're having a heart attack. Those are usually the signs where we're like, okay, I need to change something. But getting to that point, you can just as easily get to that point if you just listen to the voice inside of you.
Why does it always have to be?
No, it's not funny.
No, right. But why does it always have to be something major for people to make correction? Like, why do you have to end up in the hospital? Why do you have to end up with the black eye? Why do you have to end up in financial distress for you to make a decision to reflect and take care of yourself? All of the warning signs were there. All of the symptoms were there, and you just kept sweeping it under the rug, not taking care of yourself. Think you can drink and hang out with your girlfriends and look pretty for the day and everything is gonna go away. No, homegirl, gonna still tap you on your back of your shoulder next morning when you wake up. Now, okay, that same experience is showing up differently, but it's causing the same exact emotion that the thing yesterday caused. So we passionate about this conversation.
Yes, no, for sure.
Because, I mean, I've been there. I've been there. But once I started to heal, and once I understand my personal power, once I began to understand my strengths and my weaknesses, I no longer made the same decisions. And so we just want to help you guys see yourself and no longer make the same decisions. If this relationship is not serving you, if it is hurting you, if you're crying, if you're depressed, if you're not eating, if you're overeating, whatever you may be doing, baby girl, take a look at self. Because those things aren't the problem, they're just the triggers to the problem. So you got to want to dig deep within yourself to change and correct these things.
I really want to dig into what you said a little more, because this is where change happens. Yes, we're saying if you feel something, you should do something, right? But we need to really get into why you're not making a decision. Is it fear that you will never find love again? Well, first of all, if you're hurting, if you're not satisfied, if you can't communicate effectively, that's not love, right? Love is great. Love is expansive. Love is growing. Love is creative. So if you are not experiencing these things, it's not love, okay? So, okay, are you afraid of losing that? Do you think that people might judge you for maybe leaving a relationship? What about women in marriages, you know? Do you feel like you're obligated to this person because of what your religion has taught you?
Listen, let's talk about it. Come on, girl, let's talk about it.
I'm just saying, because we all have the power of choice. We all have the power of free will. No one is going to kill us for making a decision in our lives that's going to benefit us emotionally.
Right. So it's this thing, right, when, and I hear this all the time, men and women, they stand in a relationship for the kids. Well, the kids get grown and gone. What about you? You haven't taken the time to figure out who you are, what you like, because you've been so buried in the relationship of doing, giving. Your husband is sitting back, you're miserable with him, or you're miserable with your wife. So your identity has become the role and the responsibility of being a mom. So the first child gone, now the second child is gone. The third child is on its way out the door. What are you gonna do? When are you gonna take time to discover who you are and what you want? When are you going to take the time to redefine yourself? When are you going to make a decision that this relationship, this marriage has been killing me eternally on the inside? When are you going to make that decision to say something needs to change? If you are in an unhealthy relationship, what you're going to think happen in the next year is going to be even more unhealthy. Because guess what? You haven't changed enough to say, you know what? I think I love me a little bit more in this season, and I want to explore that. What does that look like? Me loving me beyond my responsibility and roles and duties as a mom or as a wife, as an entrepreneur. What does loving me look like? Loving you looks like an exploration of self. It is a beautiful and wonderful journey that you can go on. The obstacles are there for you to learn and grow, not to hold you back. So when you see something that you don't like, it's a reflective energy of yourself. So, okay, let's switch it. Let's change the narrative. Let's explore our emotions. What does this emotion bring out of me? Is it bringing happiness or is it bringing sadness? And if that is bringing sadness, what is the situation attached to this emotion? Now, how can I change the situation? You're going to have to get up and do something differently. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over on that hamster wheel expecting something to change. It's not.
No, it's true. Yes, and you know, loving yourself looks like deciding something different today because I can and I will, right? Another issue, not only the kids, that's what keep people in relationships, but also maybe the financial stability, right? Let me tell you, when I left my first marriage, right, I packed up my PT Cruiser, I drove to Atlanta, and I slept on my girlfriend's couch for months. But let me explain something to you. The redeveloping of myself was the most rewarding things. Like, after I lived with her for a little while, things got a little rocky, so I had to get my own space, but it was okay. I had nothing. Like, all I had was my futon, I had a dining room table. I was working up to recreate my life, but it was the most magical, peaceful moments. I felt so free. I felt so peaceful. It was like, everything in my environment, I am now controlling the narrative here. Like, I am in control here. Like, people are only coming into my space when I want them. And it was like this personal power started to grow. And so I don't want you to be, ladies, I don't want you to be afraid of the darkness, of the loneliness. I need you to start being curious about what's in there. What do I have to face to overcome it and become another version of myself? And you are going to become another version of yourself. And what a celebration that's going to be. Okay, because I'm different today. Even today, I ain't the same person I was yesterday.
Because you take the opportunity to grow, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you said I didn't have nothing, but then you went into the things that you did have. And I think the things that you did have in that experience out there, you can't put a price on it, right? Because peace is something. Let me tell you something. Once you get a hold of peace, you will not give it to anybody, because I don't care what it is. And I've said this over and over again. You is not finna disrupt my peace. When it comes to peace, that inner power of peace, you cannot give that away. Because see, when you give it away, this is when anxiety kicks in. This is where depression kicks in. This is where comparison kicks in. This is where I'm not enough kicks in, when you begin to give that peace up. So you got to hold on to that peace, because that is the most valuable thing that you can ever have in this world. Because when you're in a place of peace, you see things so differently. You understand who you are, you understand your value, you understand what you are showing up as when you have that peace. And nobody in the room can rock the foundation of your peace, because guess what? You sat still long enough to develop yourself and to get some tools throughout the process. I'm tired of people going through stuff and they coming out the same way. Go back in until you come back in.
You are going to go back in until you learn your lessons.
Because guess what? Life is like school. We graduated, we got our degrees, but you're still in school. And until you pass that test, you're going to retake it. It's going to show up differently, but it's the same freaking test. And so when are you going to say, okay, you know what? I keep hitting the same crossroad. What in me do I need to change? I keep getting in the same arguments with old boy. What do I need to change? Why does that argument keep reappearing? Hello? It is reflective of self. So you have to be willing. You have to be willing to take that deep dive into yourself. You know, and we always talk about self-awareness and mindfulness. Well, that's a big part of the journey. You becoming self-aware and you becoming mindful of you. And we love to extend grace to other people, but extend that same grace to you throughout this process, because this process is going to be difficult, and you have to be willing to show yourself some grace.
And I'm sitting here trying to figure out, if I was a woman who wasn't myself, and I was in a situation, an unhealthy attachment in this relationship, what would it be that would, like, why would I not make a decision? Because I'm trying to formulate some real life solutions. It has to be some type of fear. It has to be like worry, but of what?
Fear, self-doubt, lack of confidence, just not feeling like you are enough. I have so many women that tell me that they don't feel like they are enough. And because of that, they stay in the cycles of broken relationships. And that you have to, no one can make you feel like you're enough. You have to give that to yourself. You can't expect anyone to love you or to show up for you if you are not showing up for yourself. And I believe the purest form of love is to self. When you meet yourself and you really fall in love with yourself, you will really know what love looks like, because it changes your perception on these relationships. You know through the conversation. if you sit and you having a conversation with a guy and you're listening to him or her, you're going to hear their motive. You got to be willing to make a decision in that moment to exit the conversation. Why attach yourself to someone who's showing up with their motives and their motives are not in alignment with who you are? It's not a lifestyle that you want to go to continue to be in. So why date this man for 6 months or date this woman for 6 months when you know that ain't the person? Because in the very first conversation or the second conversation, you discovered it. But something in you said, oh girl, he fine and I'm gonna keep going. But knowing deep down inside, this is not the person for you because everything about him has already presented itself to you, and now the situation keeps getting worse. And now you're like, oh shoot, I need to get out of this relationship, but how? Because you now develop this emotional soul tie. We ain't talking about the sexual soul tie. We just talking about the emotional soul tie that you've developed. And now you can't break free from it.
So we're gonna combat this right now, because I don't want to hear that you have self-doubt, that you're not confident, that you have fear. Because if you can acknowledge that you have these emotions, and they're just emotions, and emotions can change, and you can control it based on your understanding of life, right? It seems to me like you need to get more understanding, right? Take some time to find understanding. I was never a reader, but when I realized how much it expanded my mindset to understand the perceptions of different people and how I can apply that to my life, or to understand how mental science works, to understand spirituality, it started to give me a power that I started to figure out that, hey, I can control the narrative here. And I'm not going to allow fear to intrude on my decisions, because fears, doubts, those are all just rooted on opinion or the experiences that you've already had. So if you're feeling these emotions, then you need to recognize that you're feeling them, and then attach them to the people, places, and things. The why. Why are you attached to these feelings or emotions? And I'm just going to talk about religion real quick, because religion is a big one that kind of helps people direct their lives and stay in a certain type of lifestyle, right? Because of your whatever your religion is. Because most religions, they do encourage that a man and woman stay together and that they grow. But if you are in a situation, it's kind of going against that if you're in a situation that is not helping you grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, right? Because it's supposed to be a spiritual connection when you're in a relationship. So first of all, if that's what you're leaning on, you're already in the wrong place. But you have to understand that these principles are a guide for you. And once you understand the principles, you can apply them to your life the way that you see fit. You can cut a boundary in the word if you wanted to, because nobody's going to stop you. And if that will make you feel confident enough to make a decision, then why not do it? Maybe now fear of judgment of others. People are going to say, oh, I'm not this, I'm not, holy, or I'm not. But is that cutting you? Is it hurting you? Is it harming you, right? Come on, let's expand our minds. We live in an abundant life, and anything that we want, we can have. So why not make those small changes, especially when you have to live with this person every day? I mean, it's just not worth it.
Some people don't understand their own blockages, their mental blockages. Some people don't even recognize their own self-limiting beliefs. So I think that plays a big part of it. And sometimes religion can create a self-limiting belief that is holding you back and keeping you in a negative cycle. So you have to be able to really identify that and connect to your spirituality and listen, sit still long enough to hear what God is saying, your higher power, your higher consciousness is saying to you. That is not something that is outside of you. That is something that is on the inside of you. And the mere fact that you think that you got to reach outside for something that is on the inside of you is a huge problem. It's a huge problem, because higher consciousness, higher power, it resonates. It's in you. It's the foundation of who you are. And you've allowed all these other things to attach And so now your foundation is no longer the foundation of your higher consciousness. This is why people go through an awakening, a rebirth, spirituality.
Yes.
This is why people go through that process, because they then have to shed, like a snake does, shed the skin, shed off of all of that old information, off of that old processing that they've adapted to and accustomed to. Because you got to really understand, everything is spiritual, everything is energy, and it moves and it flows. You feel it. You feel it when you enter a room, you feel it when you leave a room, you feel it when you encounter people. It's just something that you cannot describe. You just know that, oh, I felt that. Okay, if you want to put a label to it, what was that did you feel? How did it make you feel? And so it goes back to these relationships. It's energy and it's flowing. It's going up and down. Now, is it going down more than it is going up? If it's going down more than it is going up, then that's a problem. You need to correct it by getting it back in touch and in tune with who you are spiritually and vibrationally, because you want to attract the things that you are, what you truly are, not this stuff that you've encountered over the years and have taken on as your identity, and now that's how you're showing up in this relationship, and has nothing to do with who you truly are. So you're more than a mom, you're more than a wife. Now you have to figure out what's on the inside of you that really makes you you and really makes you happy. You got to go back to the foundation of you. You have to be willing to ask yourself, again, those deep, dark questions. Who am I? What's on the inside of me? What's my purpose? What am I here to do while I'm on earth? It is more than being a mom. It is more than being a wife. It is more than working a 9 to 5. It is more than being an entrepreneur. Why are you here? What are those things that you naturally gravitate towards, that comes to you very easily? What is that? It doesn't have to be this big Humerian type of thing. I said it wrong.
Humanitarian?
Humanitarian. It doesn't have to be that. It can be something as simple as you love to cook. But because being a wife and working a 9 to 5 and taking care of them kids, now cooking has become a job for you. It has become a mundane activity that you really don't care to do anymore, because of all of the stress and constraints around it. Now, what if you put yourself in a different environment and was just free to do that out of love? How differently would you show up in the world? So you have to be willing to go through these different processes and to find a solution, because the solution is within you. And I'm gonna be honest, it ain't that simple, because if it was that simple, you'd be doing it on your own. You need people to help you guide you to that simplicity, to pull it out of you. Because right now, that home life it's not doing it for you.
Right. Yeah, I love all of that. I mean, I just went on a little journey, but I love that you said to, like, if you can do something that you loved, and if you do find yourself doing something that you love, but it feels like a chore, well, like you said, maybe you need to change the way in which you do it. And so imagine, because you had mentioned environment before, so imagine, just the other day, I'm going to say this, I was like, I'm scared of bugs, right? I'm scared of bugs. But imagine if I grew up in the Amazon, right? Imagine if I grew up in a rural country overseas. Bugs will be a part of my life. I might even eat bugs. Right?
Some of them do.
So it's just like, we have to realize the impact our environment makes on us, our personality and our behaviors. If you can agree to that your environment from when you were a child to your grown age over these 2, 3, 4 decades that you've been living, if you can agree that has made an impact, then you can also agree that if you change your environment, that you can become a new person. So just start to understand things so you can have the confidence to make change in your life, because nothing is static. Everything is movable, and everything is always moving, because everything is energy. All right. And so you can start making small changes to transition the type of life you're living that can be more fulfilling to you, even in your relationship. When I decided that I was going to leave my marriage, once I got the vision and the download to do it, I started to plan, right? I started to figure out, okay, what is life going to look like? What do I need to be in a different environment? How can I prepare? What resources do I have to make the transition? See, you have to, if you really want something, you have to figure out how to get it.
So let's do this. Let's give the people a couple self-reflective questions that they can ask themselves, as it relates to them and how they want to move, the relationship. Just some self-reflective questions. I think the one thing that we must figure out is, what does happiness look like and mean for you? So that's one self-reflective question. And then look at your life. Is your life aligned to that statement, to what you come up with? And if your life doesn't reflect your definition, then that's an indicator that you need to create some type of change around your happiness.
When you ask that question, I can imagine the woman watching this video a little fearful if she looks around and say, you know what, this is not what I want. Maybe a little fear that I would lose everything that I've grown to have. All right, we had a little intermission, but listen, Deliqua asked that self-reflecting question of, looking around to determine if you are happy with your environment. And immediately I thought, wow, a woman may feel fearful that she has to make a change. But what would stop her from actually saying, okay, I'm going to change? Maybe she might think it's hard, right? You might think, oh, well, I have so much work to do, but isn't that the beauty? If the work that you put in will realize, and manifest the woman that you want to become, the woman that has everything that you want, isn't it worth it? And so now we talk about self-worth. Like, is it valuable enough to you to go after the life of your dreams?
I think another question that you should ask yourself is, what is your ideal self? What does that look like? Who is she? And when you figure out what that is and what that looks like, then you ask yourself, are you self-reflective of that? Are those traits, those qualities within you now? And if they're not, then you need to align yourself to your ideal self so that you can become that. So it's a process of becoming, right? And identifying, what does your ideal self look like?
As soon as you can release yourself from the attachment of things, it will get so fun. I'm telling you, like, once you say, you know what, F it, I don't care that I might lose it, what might I gain? Like, what opportunities may I get? Okay, let me tell you guys a story. So after I had left my marriage, it was like 2018, I had filed bankruptcy, I was working, I was depressed at my corporate job. This is the anti-anxiety expert. Let me tell you, I've been in corporate twice where I've run away from my career because it started to like close in on me. And so I was manifesting. This is when I first started learning about manifestation. I know so much more 6 years later, but this was the beginning. And one thing I learned is that the rules of manifestation, it's a law. It's going to work whether you know it's working or not, right? So as I was just kind of going through my own personal transition, getting to know myself, identifying the woman that I wanted to be, I know that I always wanted to travel. And so I wound up formulating a plan to actually leave the country. And then I got an opportunity to live in Africa. And so it's like, okay, I started to really put my mind into the woman that I wanted to be. And when I got the opportunity to embark on this journey, I didn't run from it. I didn't say it was too good to be true. I didn't say, oh my God, I'm scared. What if this comes up or this person might not want me to go? I went because I was attached to the idea of something bigger and grander for myself. And so we have to start really recognizing those opportunities when we put our energies into a life change like that as well.
Yes, definitely. And so I think a part of what she was saying too in that is recognizing self, right? Recognizing the way she thinks, what is her thought pattern around what she wants? What are her behaviors around what she wants? So you have to be able to identify your self-sabotaging behaviors. Are they holding you back from achieving what you desire? And what are your behaviors? What are the emotions? So I think that is a big part of moving forward, being able to identify what keeps you back. Not people, what keeps you back because of you, not someone else. I think a lot of times women don't move too is because of the financial fear. When they've dated or been in relationships with powerful men who handle all of the money, right, and they don't necessarily have the finances to move them and their children, and they're trying to figure out, how can I navigate moving? Sometimes you just got to jump out there and make the change, you know, asking for help. You know, if you are in an abusive relationship, physically and mentally and emotionally, asking for help. I know sometimes you don't want people to look at you as a failure, or my marriage failed, you know, I'm being abused, no one knows. But you got to, is your life important? Is your life valuable? Not to just your children, but to you. And you have to value yourself so much that that is the strength that you draw from to get out of that abusive relationship, so that you can become the woman you desire to be, because that relationship is not helping you. And so ask for help. Just simply ask for help. I don't know why. Ask for help if that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
I just felt very compelled to say that. So
no, that's
maybe
good.
she's watching.
Yeah, because you never know, right? I think that we have this fear of overexposing things. But if we're seeking answers, we have to be open and vulnerable. And you might not know where that answer is going to come from. You might ask someone who may look at you differently or judge you, but what if in that process you get a revelation from somewhere else? Like, we have to be okay with being our whole vulnerable selves. I mean, we're humans, we're experiencing this world, and things are going to happen, and we're trying to figure it out. So step out of your own way and start taking a risk on yourself. Like, how many sacrifices have you made for other people? Like, start doing that for yourself and see where you end up, because at the end of the day, you're in control. And so, you know, it just might work out for you.
It will work out for you. You have to know that. And, you know, I mentioned something the other day about your external belief system, right? You have to really turn that into an internal power of knowing. What do you know about you? And maybe you should journal that. What do you know about you? And let that be the fuel to get you to your next level, to get you out of those broken, damaged relationships that are doing a number on your mental and emotional well-being, that are doing a number on your finances. Because maybe you feel like, you know, to keep up, you got to look a certain way. And now you got all these bad spending habits, and you can't save any money to move out of the relationship. So maybe you should consider that. Look at your spending habits. To get out of these what do we call them? What kind of ties and attachments? Unhealthy attachments to these relationships. Because a lot of times you're keeping yourself back. It's not the relationship, it's you. Yeah. Period.
Get passionate about yourself. Like, love yourself more than anything. Are you kidding me? Who else is there to love? When everything else goes away, when your kids get old, if your husband passed away, like, you are always with yourself. You are always with your mind. Like, take care of you in a way that you take care of others. It's really that simple. It's really that simple.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, man. Listen, y'all done got me out of my element. My throat is hurting a little bit. I think I talked a little too much.
Yeah, we done got a little passionate on this one. But, you know, when you are coaching women and you're listening to them, and when you got homeboys, you know, that you are talking to, you hear things. And I hear a lot of things that make me just cringe on the inside. So I think you guys probably felt that a little bit.
It's okay.
But it's okay.
Yep,
It is okay.
You
It
need
is okay. So we hope that it is our hope that this video gives you some insight and solutions to change what you need to change, so that you can get out of these unhealthy relationships.
And just keep asking for help. You never know who's listening.
All right, guys.
So, see you next time.
Next time.